Hi, folks. Welcome to the next episode of Serverless Craic with myself, Dave Anderson. I'm author at the Serverless Age and technical help with our voice. I'll let the two gentlemen introduce themselves.
Mark McCann, author at Serverless Age, and stay-at-home dad working on my 5K times.
Michael O'Reilly, contributor at Serverless Age, architect, EP, not working on my 5K times.
Working on sofa time. So we figured we'd talk today about sustainability. We've been doing a lot of reading and writing about sustainability and cloud compute, and what certainly sparked this one is Simon Wardley had a tweet this past couple of days. Plus the COP26 is just kind of in the news, just finishing. It's Simon's tweet. Simon says, "I hope AWS bring out carbon cost per Lambda execution." So today when a Lambda executes, it's whatever, there's a cost per execution, but nice if they also give the carbon cost. Like this is, I'm not sure. What do you think? Mark, do you think they'll do this? Obviously reInvent is now in a couple of weeks time in 2021.
I think I'm hoping more than expectation. I have no insider knowledge or anything like that, but I think it would be very good timing if they did. I think being able to calculate the carbon footprint for a particular workload, especially with the renewed interests in sustainability and saving the planet and environmental concerns, especially on the back of COP26. I think it's one of the big wins that I think that all the cloud providers can easily put out there. And we've seen very recently with the Microsoft Azure calculator that they've released, and also GCP have their carbon footprint sort of capabilities as well. That that's two of the big cloud providers are definitely up on their game in this regard. So I'm hoping AWS do something similar. I think we've used sort of the cost almost as a proxy for your carbon footprint up to now, but that's a big assumption, right? There's lots more to it than just that. But I think that's been a good one. It's kind of with our serverless server approach and our serverless first approach, we've always been sustainability. You're almost getting not for free, but you're getting it as a side effect, really, of our approach. So I'm hoping we get that carbon per function, carbon emitted per function, in the same way that we get our cost per function bills. Should hopefully. In my mind, I have beautiful dashboards and lovely reports that we can talk and articulate to our teams about. But let's see what happens. And
I have a good question for you, Mark. Right, because although you're the guy, you are the sustainability guy, right? So could you do like I do, like you wonder about this one, right? So like if you look at, say, like Amazon sort of EU sort of Dublin kind of setup, they've got that's all green energy, isn't it, at the minute? And
it is.
All right, so was it EU West? So it's all green energy. So why would Lambda be more efficient though than, say, if they were running containers or say like a K8s cluster, say, run on sort of EC2 kind of node?
I think there's the architectural answer of it depends on your workload, but I think
there's an illustration there that's important, because there's two things here. There's how green is the data center, the location. Like Finland is very kind of the sustainability factor is very high, where other regions maybe it's different for each region. But I was thinking about this. I think there's an illustration, and there's 4 different basic models, I think, for compute. So the first one is, for me, the 4 are buying a computer, using an instance in the cloud, using a container in the cloud, and then using something serverless. And then they explain that properly. Say you go to PC World. So like, say you have a terabyte of video you need to convert from MP4 to different format. You go up, drive up to PC World, buy a box, come home, plug it in, and run that workload, right? So that's the worst way of doing it. The second way is you configure an EC2 instance on AWS, and you give it that workload, because there's like time, memory, CPU, and like say there's storage with your EC2, which is just a file system connected to it. Then there's a cloud native way of doing it, which is get a container and maybe using something like S3 to help out with the storage. And then there's the serverless way of doing it, just using the native services. And it stands to reason for me that the fourth way is there's less carbon burn than the first way. First way is easily the worst, because you're driving up to the shop and you're physically lifting something into your house.
Yeah.
But
I think
it's too hard, I think, for the cloud providers to give you that exact comparison, because there's a lot happening there.
Yeah, I think because it's all ephemeral in the serverless world, and it's all shared sort of resources under the hood. The servers on the servers in the cloud are being split across multiple customers, multiple tenants on that hardware. It's very hard to do that, but as part of the sustainability, it's all about reuse, right?
Yep.
It's all about only using what you need and then moving on, and so you're reusing that hardware, and it's being reused across many thousands of customers, right? So there's an effectiveness and efficiency there for that underlying sort of compute resource, if you will, that you're not going to get if you just buy dedicated hardware to run your workload, right? And then it's just sitting idle if you're not using it, right? So there is an efficiency sort of gain there. We do have to be wary of sort of Jevons paradox, that the more efficient you make something, the more you use it, and then it takes over anyway, and then you end up burning the same amount of carbon anyway. But I think and something we talk about a lot is we want to minimize the amount of work not done, or maximize the amount of work not done, right? We want to truly understand what it is we're trying to accomplish, and then use that serverless first mindset to only use or only to leverage what we absolutely necessarily need to meet that need, and do nothing else. That's a very sort of carbon effective or carbon efficient way of solving that particular problem. We're not going to build a big platform. We're not going to build a big Death Star just to solve some small issue, right?
Yeah. And I think that's the interesting bit, and I think kind of listening to you guys talk there, it is in terms of those chains and those sort of value streams, and then there's carbon scores at each point, and then you kind of got to work out, well, what is the equation there for sort of most effective approach to dealing with your carbon spend. And like, I think you're absolutely right. Like for me, it's the first step, get into the cloud, and then second step, it's really beginning to think about how your energy utilization, and I kind of, Dave, I do like the way you kind of put it there, those sort of different sort of progressions. So I think I think you're right.
And I think you're right about the just first step is move into the cloud in general. You close down your data centers and use the cloud. I think there was a report coming from AWS this week around 80% more efficient, or than running your own data center, right? And to have all the data and the stats to back all that up, right?
And this is the thing that and I think this is really interesting, and people never understand this when you explain it to them. But when you move from a box sitting in your house to a box that you rent from Amazon, they're going to run a box much more efficient than you do. But then you're paying, like, you're renting that box 24 hours, right? Are you going to use 100% of utilization? And the answer is no. So what I describe that as legacy cloud. You've got a box in the cloud, but it's legacy cloud because you don't have elasticity in that box. Maybe tipping along at 10%. So you've 90% of wasted resource sitting there, right? But you still need everything else to power that. But if you, and now AWS call this modern applications, and that includes containers and serverless. And by the way, serverless, actually, there are servers and they're containers. So it's, they're both the same thing. So if you do modern applications, what you're doing is you're having a box, but you're letting AWS make sure that that's, maximized. So like you say, Mark, you're reusing that because there's still a physical computer sitting in the cloud kind of data center, but you're just you're letting Amazon make sure it's effective. So there's a jump in efficiency moving to the cloud, and there's an extra massive jump moving to modern architecture. And cost is the way you measure that, but then cost savings plans can also mask that sometimes in reserved instances. So there's a nuance, and that's one of the reasons why it'd be great to see Amazon come out with some kind of carbon score for your workload. And it's easy for legacy cloud because it's a box. It's harder for modern applications.
Yeah, and I think like we've all been talking about well architected serverless first, for quite a while now, right? And we feel that's the best way to deliver that secure, cost-effective, performant, reliable sort of solution, right? And if teams have embraced that and they have a really good handle on it and they've delivered solutions in a serverless first way, whatever comes out from the cloud providers around carbon, they'll be able to adopt that within probably minutes, hours, right? Maximum, right? So they'll be able to do it. And we're seeing this, a lot, with COP26, with ESG sort of boardroom level mandates and C-suite sort of level. This stuff's starting to work its way through all big organizations. Actually, all organizations, large and small, they're going to need to be able to answer that question of, well, what's your carbon footprint? How sustainable is your business? What's the environmental impact for whatever it is you're trying to do? And I think teams who have embraced serverless and are in the cloud and are doing the service will be at an advantage because they'll be able to articulate very clearly, well, here's what this solution is delivering. Here's the carbon score. Hopefully, whenever that becomes available, I know Google and Azure have this already in place. That's a very powerful argument that they can then have with their business partners to say, yes, we're doing okay, or we're not doing okay. We need to do better, right? So, I think just giving that visibility and that transparency will help drive the right sort of conversations, because we're all driving towards the same sustainable goals. We all feel this is the right thing to do for various reasons, right?
Yeah. If they don't do it though, right? So say David, you mentioned earlier, they struggle with being able to measure it or something like that. But do you not think it would be good, an extension to the well-architected framework, to provide that sort of guidance with regards how to actually your workloads as effectively, as efficiently as possible? And they probably do that, but they don't do it they don't frame it in relation to sort of your carbon sort of footprint.
It's almost like a combination between performance and cost. Like, do you remember doing performance tests years ago when you could see the headroom of the application, how efficient it was and stuff? So there's a couple of factors you have to bake in. I think it should be common, and for me, it is an attribute of well architected. It is a sign of good architecture, having a sustainable system. But it's too hard to measure.
Yeah. I think, Mike, you might need to update your blog post on Scorp to be Scorps.
Scorps.
That's it. What's that there? Security, cost, OpEx, performance, reliability, and
performance.
Sustainability. Another thing is, remember the map we did a map a few weeks ago. We talked about, if you're a company, where is your carbon burn? You know what I mean? So there's stuff around employees and keeping an office open. So obviously remote working and being responsible about employees and staff is good. And, and one trip to the States and back, and you're burning a whole lot of carbon. So there's employee burn. Then there's physical supply chain. If you're selling a physical product, there's how you get that, and things you physically bring in. So if you're a software company, maybe you don't have as much of that. But then there's the software supply chain, and that's what we're talking about here. Is, are you getting sustainable compute? How you build, or are you building in an unsustainable way? And that's still very cutting edge.
Yeah, and I think when you take a very holistic view at the whole, the whole value stream for an organization or a business, we even talked about things like, your developer IDE. Do you need to have, high-powered M1 Mac Pros shipped to all your developers when there are compelling cloud IDEs available now? So those rare earth minerals that go into making the laptops, the resources, the carbon footprint of all those high-powered machines. Is that an expense worth paying whenever there are very compelling, like GitHub Codespaces, Cloud9, Gitpod, there's a few others that are out there that are really starting to, offer compelling options, right? But this is the big sort of thing. I think these are things that are in our sort of our domain, our purview. When you look at a business as a whole, their tech footprint might be quite small, but at least, we can drive sort of, this is what you should be able to do. This is what the future should look like. So yeah, we can tell you what your tech stack costs, what the environmental footprint of it, what the carbon footprint of it. What about the rest of the business? What about, so, it may not be a big part of the overall footprint for a large enterprise, but at least it starts driving things the right direction. It can showcase what is possible. for the rest
What
of those
what
businesses.
what I think is really interesting about this, it's a bit like, do you remember like electric cars were more expensive early on, so it was more expensive to be eco-friendly.
Yeah.
But with this stuff, it's cheaper to be eco-friendly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I think I don't understand why people haven't clicked onto that. It's cheaper to build in a more sustainable way, you know. So just I can't understand why people aren't doing it more.
I think even in a competitive landscape, on a competitive advantage, if you're a service provider or consultancy company, or you're doing some building solutions for companies, if you can offer that also our solutions will be low carbon footprint and sustainable, that's a competitive advantage going forward, because that's going to be a big objective or a big mandate for all businesses. I think so. Standing up a load of containers and burning through a load of energy and carbon, isn't gonna cut it. So I think well, maybe I'm being optimistic here, but I think with the push for better sustainability will drive the need for more serverless first approaches.
Yeah, and then the other thing is a lot of the government standards coming in now. They kind of put pressure on companies.
Yeah, and I was delighted to see the UK government announce their sustainability guidelines. So their Central Digital and Data Office, they just published it, I think it was yesterday. And if you haven't read it, there's loads of great stuff in that. There's like 12 points about what are your organization's sustainability goals, but they have some really interesting ones about reducing your greenhouse gas emissions. So use public cloud, optimize your cloud use. By managing your cloud spending, but also use less energy. Audit your data, which is a really cracking one to call out. How much duplicate data do you have? Yeah, don't store it. We used to have the whole line about data is the new oil, but oil can be quite toxic and quite harmful to the environment. So I think you treat your data in the same way. You only store it if you absolutely necessarily really are getting value from it.
And then as Adrian Cockcroft says, if you collect a piece of data and you don't put it in a model, just delete it because it's out of date.
Absolutely. Well, so we got audit your live environments and switch off unnecessary environments where possible. We've seen that a lot in our time, right? There's these environments just sitting burning all day long, all night, and nobody's using them, right? And then decommission unnecessary systems your project might replace. So how many projects have we been on where we built the new thing, but the old thing still remains?
Yeah, lots of goodness there.
But anyway, we'll put that in the show notes. There's a link to it. It's a cracking read. It's very, very, very well written, and it's a great start for if the UK government are doing this, then what's stopping your organization?
Yeah, and fingers crossed to move forward in this. All right, very good. So that's the crack anyway. So like I said, we'll keep writing about some of the stuff on the blog at the serverlessage.com. Follow us on Twitter at serverlessage, and we'll have some of the stuff in the book, which is coming out next year. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
True.